Welcome to another edition of Community Social Justice Presents. Tonight, we're having a community conversation. I'm your host, DeShannon, and I want you to go ahead, tag somebody, share this now, because we're going to be talking about building wealth in the Black community. But first, let me just pause for a second, get myself together. I want to thank my community social justice family, because many of you know I've had a really, really hard week. But it was because you guys prayed me through, shared my posts, that I'm able to sit here and still smile, because you guys held me up, and I just want to say thank you. Now, who is community social justice? Where did we come from, and what do we do? Listen, we were birthed out of the church, but we understand more than ever that we got to do things outside of the church walls. We're out in the community. We bringing you things like education, financial literacy, mental health awareness, domestic abuse, racism. We're talking about politics, voter rights and suppressions, all of the laws. We've had attorneys, we had dignitaries, we've had Warnock on here, guys. We're vetting these people. We ain't bringing you any kind of people. We want to make sure that what we bring you is the truth and nothing but the truth. You can get your information from anywhere. But if you're here watching me tonight, you know that we're going to come with straight facts. Now, we're talking about building wealth in the Black community. What is wealth? Is that subjective? Why don't we have it? Why are we so behind? Why had nobody told us about this? Listen, if you want to know what wealth is, how to build it, and how to get it for generations to come, go ahead and share this now. Tag somebody. Get your comments and your questions ready, because time out for us to keep saying we are children of the King. But when have you ever seen a broke princess or a broke prince? Okay, so Let's tap into some resources that you may or may not know about. I'm excited. I want you to go ahead and share this now. Again, I'm DeShannon. I am your host tonight for Community Social Justice, and we're going to talk about building wealth in the Black community. But it's just not for us. Listen, you got some white folks want to hear this, tag them too, because everybody needs this information. Okay, I've got some amazing guests tonight. Okay, listen, I've got people that you want to know. You're going to want to get their name, get their information, because I'm giving you resources that you can actually touch and feel. I'm not talking about something I done heard. I ain't talking about something I done Googled. I'm talking about how to build wealth in the Black community. Are y'all ready? Because I am so ready for this conversation. So let's start bringing on our guests. My first guest, oh my gosh, this lady is a friend of mine. I call her friend. Her name is Stephanie Whitaker. Hey, Stephanie.
Hi, Shannon.
Listen, go ahead and tell us a little bit about who you are.
Sure. Stephanie Whitaker is my name. Obviously, I'm a former Chick-fil-A owner-operator. I had the Wesley Chapel location in Decatur, Georgia, when my children were young. It was a great opportunity to earn additional income. But what I loved most about it was that I was able to help some of the children in our neighborhood learn how to actually run a business. I am CEO of Good Success Investors, LLC, and we invest in people. I'm delighted to be on the call tonight, and I look forward to sharing with you. Thank you, DeShannon. Back to you.
I love her, guys. Okay, so this next guy, you know, we don't even have time to run his resume down, but I call him friend too. He checks on me even if I don't even answer his text back. Because that's just the kind of guy he is. I'm going to bring on Mr. David Linton. Hey, David.
How you doing, Shannon? And good evening. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm David Linton. Most people know me as a former senior vice president of several major record companies. Currently program director of WCLK, the #1 jazz station in the country, housed at Clark Atlanta University. But I'm also district manager, and I believe I'm like Stephanie. I invest in people through Primerica Life. And what we do is we teach people how money works, because, everything comes with instructions except children and money. And so we tell people how money works, because in order to build wealth, you have to understand the product, and the product is money and how to make it work for you. And so tonight we'll have some of those conversations.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. So now we've got Stephanie and now we've got David. But listen, this next guest, everybody tells me I got to know this guy. Hey, Stephanie and David been holding out on me. So I want you to welcome my next guest, Mr. Pierre Clements.
Hello, everyone. My name is Pierre Clements. I'm an Atlanta native. My background includes 25 years of sales and business development experience with 4 Fortune 500 companies. I'm also the CEO of Inside Group International, which is a business development consultancy as well. I'm passionate about investing. I've been an investor since the age of 15. I look forward to sharing in the dialogue today.
Okay, so now we have going to have some technical difficulties because this is the internet and this is what happens. But you know what? We just gonna keep it rolling. That's what we do. Nothing's ever perfect. But listen, this is Community Social Justice, and we're having a conversation tonight about building wealth in the Black community. And so when we're talking about that, I want us to understand what we're saying. What I want to ask, and I'm going to start with you, Mr. Clemens, what is the definition of wealth?
So from my perspective, the definition of wealth is being financially independent. You're in a position in life where your life needs are met. You have no worries. And I think it all starts with a plan and being very intentional. From my perspective, taking those learnings from youth and really putting them into practice, and also putting yourself in a position to be able to take care of the next generation of your family. It's obviously a series of processes and steps that help us get there, and we'll get into that dialogue during this discussion today.
Okay, so when we're talking about, we hear the term generational wealth. We hear leaving an inheritance for your children's children. We hear those terms. So Stephanie, what does that actually look like?
Thank you, DeShannon. First of all, we begin with a wealth mindset, understanding that the number one priority is to have time freedom and money freedom at the same time. When that happens, then you understand that the goal is to create a legacy, live that legacy, and then leave that legacy with instructions 4 to 6 generations deep for the next group of people coming behind you. And that's one of the things that excites me about what we're doing, because obviously we need to protect our income and then grow our assets. And I'm glad to say as well with David that I'm a part of an organization that helps people do that. You need a financial education, you need a financial game plan, and you need a financial coach, and we provide that. Back to you.
Okay, so David, when you said something about money did not come with instructions. So where are the instructions then? How are we supposed to know what to do when we have money, or what to even do with that? Where are we missing the information, and why is it being seemingly withheld?
Well, we're taught traditionally to go to school, get an education, get a job, put away for retirement, retire, and go off into the sunset. And so that sounds like a good plan. Get an education, but then you can have an education, but still not know how. Even if you amass money, we read so many stories of millionaires and especially athletes, when money comes to you quickly, and then they wind up who win the lottery, and then 10 years they're without, because no one gives them that instructions. And see, where do you get that instruction? First of all, you have to, you can get it in books. Some people don't look at books. You can go to financial institutions, but in some places you have to have a certain portfolio to even talk to certain people about how to invest money. So when I say that, we are taught to put money in our banks. Banks are good. Banks aren't your friend, because they give you 0.0% money, whereas your colleagues are putting their money elsewhere and getting double digits. People don't learn. There's something called the rule of 72. Most people wouldn't even know what that is.
The rules. Let me stop you and ask Mr. Clement something. Is it because we tend to learn about money from our parents or within our households? Is that really what's holding us as a community back from not learning about things like David was going to get into? Who teaches us this? It's not taught in school. So where can I get the instructions from?
So I would say, there are several schools of thought in that. Fortunately for me, I had someone in my household who actually taught me the rule of 72 and what it means from a very early age, and was very intentional about talking about investing. Now, this particular person was my father. My father had no investment background whatsoever. He was a educator in the DeKalb County schools, but he was self-taught. But he was taught through exposure with people that he worked with, and clearly had a passion for learning. And as a result of that, the same people actually took the time to really show him the rules of investing. Unfortunately for me, at a very early age, I really didn't have a choice, but the knowledge was shared at home, which really has endeared me to have a passion and understanding it at a very early age. It was basically, this is what you need to do. And then later it was why you need to do it. So in turn now, as I have 2 sons in college, both seniors, having those same conversations. From my perspective, I think it's really what we're doing today, taking the time to share the information early, sharing those simple concepts that people need to learn that are actually applicable, and you could go do something now. Well, it's the rule of 72, or whether it's looking at, something like dividend reinvestment plans, things that allow you to start where you are in terms of good habits, taking those dollars and being consistent about applying those dollars in a vehicle that's going to give you above average returns beyond what you're taught traditionally through a bank or other organizations. Through that discipline, you will grow over time, and over time, your portfolio grows exponentially through that exposure as you think about the taxable consequences of your investments.
Okay, so let me just stop all y'all for 1 second. Let's just take a step back, because when people start talking like that and we don't know what you're talking about, we don't want to get involved in it because we don't want to seem like we know nothing. So when you start talking about, investing in rules of 72 and compound interest, I have no clue. So you said something about starting where you are, but you're not talking where I am. So Stephanie, can somebody talk to me where I am so that I understand and I'm not threatened or intimidated by your financial jargon so I can get started today? I don't even comprehend what you're saying. So let's take a step back. I don't know anything, but I need to know something. Talk to me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much to Shannon. The first thing, Mr. Clements, you said that you learned at home how to do basic things. And I want to speak to that, like put your money someplace other than out in someone else's pocket. So you learned how to bypass banks. Your dad took you by the hand and shared with you what to do with money. Well, there are a lot of people who don't have access to that. The word tells us we should be books, easily read. So the person you are today is the same person you'll be 10 years from now, except for those two things, the books you read and the people who influence you. So the concept is each one teach one, each one reach one. So DeShannon, to answer your question, first of all, if you don't have a GPS, something that can take you from point where you are right now today and show you basic strategies for how to take a portion of your money that you make, first of all, and pay yourself. Most people work a job, they don't pay themselves first. They don't put money in a vehicle where they can gain interest. Some people don't even know that the goal is to have your money double, triple, quadruple. So we start basically with what are you earning right now? How are you earning your money? And if you're earning only as an employee, we want to talk to you a little bit about how to come from that side of just being an employee to getting something where you can become self-employed with a license, for instance. Something as basic as a life insurance license can help you earn additional income. Become a business owner, get a bigger check so that you can now take that check and invest it in a vehicle like David and Mr. Clements were talking about to be able to have your money making money for you. Because the bottom line, DeShannon, if you don't learn how to make your money clock in and go to work for you, you will work until you die. And so that's a part of the problem we have in our neighborhoods, in our communities, is that no one taught us, one, how money worked, two, how to make money work for us. And like you said, before we can get into any of the concepts for doing that, we have to first.
Well, Stephanie froze on my end, so we'll get her back in just a second.
Well,
Let's talk
if I
about
can,
how you earn your money and then learn how to.
Go ahead, David.
no, I was going to say, one of the things, going back to when you talk about generational wealth, I go back to my grandfather, who was not a well-educated man, basic education. But one thing that he did, he had multiple streams of income. I'm talking about on my father's side. Early on, he was in South Carolina. He worked at a plant. He was a farmer. He had a little general store. He had 3 streams of income early on. He taught us all He taught my father, who taught it to me. It's not how much you make, it's what you do with what you make. And then it's how much you save, as Stephanie was saying, paying yourself first. And then living below your means. And that means just because you make $10 doesn't mean you spend $10. If you make $10, learn how to live off of 5 or 6. And so those little things from a seemingly, quote, uneducated man with not a lot of education, but a lot of common sense, you know, those principles were good. And he created generational wealth for our family. You know, it's not like the Fords or the Kennedys or anybody like that who built trust. So you'll talk about trust and those types of things. But he did lay down a foundation that we all could build on. And that's the things that in our communities, we have to begin with the simple thing of just learning how to, one, pay ourselves. That's the beginning, and living below the mean.
Okay, so I'm glad that y'all broke that down, because you got to understand, someone is watching this wanting to know the information. Let's keep it somewhat simple, but let us give them the information. But Mr. Clements, I want to ask you something. Traditionally, in the Black community, when we get paid, we look good. We want to look good, and it stems from people thinking we did not have. And so I can look at my mother's yearbook. She looked like she was going to the prom every day at school. She had on a dress. My daddy had on suits. And that they looked good. You presented well. I learned that word early. You have to present well, DeShannon. You present well. And do you think that mindset where we go out and we buy everybody's name but our own, we spend everything we have to look good, to drive well, and we may not even own the place we're living in? Do you think some of that stems from that? And if so, how do we break that?
I think it stems partly from that. I also think part of it is really just from being further educated. You know, we can still look good, but you want to shop as a wholesale consumer. When you think about the pandemic and where we are right now, what the virtual world has taught us is you have to buy things online. And as you look at things online now, there's significant discounts below what you would pay in a retail operation. You can still look good. I can tell you right now, probably 90% of my shopping is online. And I've learned I could buy something online versus going in a retail outlet and pay, 50, 60, 70, 80% less than what you would normally see and still have quality. So I think it's a maturation over time of education. There is that piece that wants to look good and want to show up well, but over time you learn that there's more than one way to do that, and you can still accomplish those things and still pay yourself first, all in putting it in perspective. What you don't want to do is overspend and go into debt trying to impress someone beyond yourself. You want to be fiscal about it. And if you're fiscal about it, you can still accomplish the same thing. You can also accomplish the objectives that we're talking about today.
Okay, so let's get into some of that. So Stephanie, I'm going to start with you and just go around the room. David, piggyback off Stephanie, and then Mr. Clements will piggyback off that. We don't know how to get started. I've been saving. My company might have a 401k. I don't know whether to be moderately aggressive, conservative. I'm just choosing something because I at least need something. I don't know how to even begin. I don't really have a lot in savings. Can I still build generational wealth at my age? Can I start now? Or should I have started earlier? What can I do right now?
DeShannon, great point. First of all, it's never a bad time to start. It's always a good time to start, no matter what your age. The education is very important. And again, some of the basic things that we missed is that our foreparents may have had something as simple as a plot to be buried in, but they had the wrong kind of income protection. And so because of the industry, there were families devastated because they were in the wrong financial products. When I look at the LA Times and I look at the Guardian, and they're predicting that by the year 2053, Black wealth will fall to zero, they say, if current trends continue. My question is, what trends are we talking about? And it's the same thing we're talking about: a lack of financial education, a lack of a game plan, a lack of a coach. And so where do you get that from? The first place is what we're doing now, forums like these, where we can at least begin the discussion, have the conversation. That's the beginning point. Where can you go to get some free education about how to budget? Where can I get some education about entrepreneurship so that I can understand what it is, what it isn't? Where can I go to network opportunities where I don't have to pay for that, but where someone can pour into me and show me what I can do? When I look even at my industry, I'm a registered representative. I have all of the same licenses that the Wall Street people have, right? In this industry, and I'm excited to know that we have mentoring programs that can help with that.
Awesome. David, how do I get started?
Well, something that Stephanie said, one of the things is you got to be around people who can teach you. One thing that we do every 3 times a week, we hold classes, and we're doing them on Zoom now, where we actually have a forum where people can come in and begin to learn the basics of how money works, buying the right insurance and the wrong insurance. People don't know that, Warren Buffett started his whole empire with an insurance license, and then the thing about insurance is one of the first ways you can begin to develop wealth. We call it life insurance, but it's really income protection. You protecting your assets. But, historically, we've been in the wrong instrument. If you go to anything, most people will buy whole life insurance. They say, why? Because it's cheaper and the premium won't go up and I get to save money. But if you go to any known financial experts, if you listen to the Susie Osman, you go to Reverend DeFree, any financial, they'll tell you that term life is the best way to go because it's pure insurance. All you want to do is, you can get more for less. And then when your time comes, you allow leaving a larger bit of money for the next generation. And if they are then taught how to take that money, they can then take that and begin to build, generational wealth. Because again, it's about where you're going to you're going to either hit the lottery, or you're going to get, you can have a fantastic windfall, but usually how are you going to get that wealth? So you want to be an entrepreneur, or again, buying that right instrument. Everybody goes and buy in life insurance. We do that as our people, but we buy the wrong kind. And I'll stop there, but we give classes on how people should begin to do that and about other instruments.
Okay, Mr. Clements, I hear them. I don't want to be an entrepreneur. I ain't talking about, because I don't want to talk about life insurance. I said I wanted to invest some money, or how to invest. Can I start now? Now they want me to start my own business. Now we talking about life insurance. All I asked y'all to do was help me invest money. So when you encounter the me's of the world that still kind of want to know, but unsure, people want me to do this and that, and all I want to do is make money. What do you tell me? What is the easiest thing I can do to start making money right now, or making money work for me right now? You're on mute.
I'm sorry. What I would say to you is you think about that, really be intentional in terms of your research. There's a lot of resources available that can help guide that journey in investing, because that's not necessarily one answer. You know, the key is, we talked about earlier, is you want to be in a position to get a greater rate of return. There are many vehicles that will allow you to do that. But one of the things that I've admired is, you know, there's information available through, obviously, the internet age, in terms of, you know, brokerages, financial resources that you can talk to for free on the phone. There are a lot of brokerage. Obviously, you have two representatives here on this call from Primerica. There are other resources. You can go online just to look at investment options, you know, whether it's, you know, stocks or mutual funds. If you want to really go to the basic, there's a book called Investing for Dummies, where you can get that book, and it would just show you simple things about what the terms are. There are also small independent books on Amazon that talk about the terminology of investing in the stock market, depending on how far you want to go with that. But through it all, it really starts with that financial discipline of looking at your situation and your income, and how much money do you want to be disciplined and invest. It just make a decision to start, you know, whether it's $200 a month or $1,000 a month. Be consistent in that number and know you can deliver that number, and then talk about means that will allow you to do that. As I was talking earlier, my apologies for going way on the left on that, but when you think about the concept of dividend reinvestment plans, what I like about the dividend reinvestment plans is you basically come up with a dollar amount. You pick a stock that you may be interested in, you do some research on that stock, and you basically commit to that investment amount every month. What it allows you to do is allows you to get involved, it allows you to get started, it allows you to accumulate shares through what is called dollar cost averaging, where you maximize your return. And over time, you're basically accumulating shares. And as you see, the more your income increases, it will allow you to invest more. And as you see those returns, trust me, you will be motivated to invest more. And I'm telling you from a testimony to do that. But it's basically making that decision to start and keeping it simple.
Okay, I'm going to start back with you, Mr. Clements. When we're talking about building wealth, you made it seem like I can do it with $200 a month. What if I don't have that? Could it be less?
I would say you can start with, you know, $50 a month. The thing is, for me, the discipline to find a number that's within your means incrementally to grow. And as you look at that, finding vehicles to help you do that over time, as your income or situation increases, then you can look at other options. You know, we talked about the concept of different income streams. You know, obviously an employer is one opportunity, but there are other areas. You know, you'll find as you go through a pandemic and changes in a job, you have to look at other options. You know, I have an example. My youngest son is extremely passionate about sneakers. And to be honest, I was oblivious to know the sneaker world. But I've been absolutely amazed at his passion and the research that he's done. And he started out as a simple hobby. And, you know, he's forming an LLC now. He's a senior in college, and he made a believer out of me, right? So I say that to say it was something very passionate about, but he was a student. He wanted to get better. And now he's looking to take it to the next level versus just doing an internship. So that's obviously another income stream opportunity. We all have passions that we love, whether it's, you know, washing cars or cutting the grass. When I was young, you know, I didn't realize I was an entrepreneur at age 13. I had 6 yards. My neighbors would come and ask me to cut the yard. Why? Because I did a great job. Was it something that I wasn't interested in doing? Yes, but it was income, right? And over time, as you look at those additional areas to make money, it allows you to put you in a position, hopefully, to invest more. And then that process starts.
Okay, so we're going to talk about doing the things that you love. I'm glad, Mr. Clements, you segued perfectly in that. Thank you, sir. When people talking about entrepreneurship, sometimes that word itself can seem like it's too much, or how do I form a LLC, or what are the articles of incorporation? Am I going to have to pay separate this or that? But I tell people, what you love to do now, somebody will pay you for that. And so one of the first things about, I think it was David that said, different streams of income, have more than one source of money coming in. So your son with the sneakers, I get paid to talk. I talk for a living. I love it. And so people pay me to do what I already naturally do well. So, David, how do you guide someone into when they say, well, I don't know what I can do? What would you tell them? Or how would you encourage them to have multiple streams of income, like your grandfather that had a store, a farm? He was already doing what a lot of people don't do. Why should they have more than one income?
Well, the thing is, first of all, you have to know yourself, and then you have to find out what your passions are. I was blessed that my passion at a very early age was music, although I can't sing. But I had an ear for music. And so I was blessed to be able to take that passion for music, learned as much as I could about music, but not so much music on the surface, but the business of music. Because then I realized that the musicians are hired help, but the people who behind the scenes get really paid continuously. And so I was blessed. So what did I do? I learned school, got degrees, and I wound up in the music industry, and I'm currently in broadcasting, which is my passion, which I would do for free. But I got compensated very well for that. But I also knew that I needed another stream, because I also knew that I was in an industry that was very precarious. It's almost like an athlete. If you're blessed, you could make a lot of money in a very short window. So what happens when they close that window? So you have to have something else to do. And so early on, I loved biographies. So I read a lot, and I was a writer. So I write for people. But I also read stories about the wealthy and how they got wealthy. And they got wealthy by being around other people who were wealthy. So I always somehow attached myself so that I could soak up that knowledge to learn the next best thing to do. And then again, as I said, even now at this stage in life, I've just recently hitched my wagon to a guy who's a millionaire. And if you looked at him, you wouldn't even know he was a millionaire. But he's taken us under his wing, and he's teaching us his seminars. And that's why I say and he taught us how to share ideas and concepts. But because it all starts with the mindset. You may not all want to do the same thing, but there are concepts, and it begins with the retooling and thinking of the mind. Because again, we as a community, I was just reading a story, it was on CPB or NPR the other day, that the American community as a consumer, we have $1.2 trillion in assets as a consumer, because we are consumers, and you hear them talking about the president wants $3 trillion for a budget. The African American buying power in this country is 1.2 trillion. So what we have the resources, we just have to learn how to channel them in the right directions so that they can grow and we can create that wealth. Instead of the money going one way, it has to go circular. Well, that's another conversation. I'll stop there.
Now,
it's a passion.
It is. I love that. I love that. So bringing us back to building wealth, when you're talking about building, sometimes we want instant gratification. I want it now. Like, if I give you this, can I get something right now? So talk to me about what building wealth really looks like. And I heard Mr. Clement say something about discipline. So, Mr. Clement, I'm going to come back to you to talk to us about what that means. But Stephanie, tell me, what does building wealth look like? And is that something I do for me, or do I do it for other people? Because, I can be selfish and I might do it for me, but this title says building wealth in the Black community. So, building wealth, what does that really look like?
Okay, DeShannon, first, everyone on this call is familiar with something as simple as a house. Different versions of it. If you're building a ranch style home, you don't have to dig very deep to build something like that. If you're building a 2-story home, it takes a little bit more on a foundation, if you will. And if you're building a skyscraper, then you have to dig a lot deeper and secure water tables and all of these other things. So something as basic as a house, you have to start with a foundation. And so the first thing is, what do you want? You have to know what you want, because before you can build anything, you need a blueprint. And so an initial conversation about what it is that you want can start that conversation. The next thing, if you know what you want, you really can have it. When do you want it? Let's talk about a timeline. Let's start where you are to be able to build. You wouldn't put a roof on a home that did not have walls or a foundation to build upon. So we want to talk about first things first, and then what price are you willing to pay for it? We have to know what we're looking to build, and what are you prepared to give in return to have it. And so when we do those things, we talk about building a financial house, building wealth. The reason David mentioned and Mr. Clements mentioned even anything about life insurance is because that is the foundation for building a strong financial house, particularly for families who are someone is depending on the major breadwinner's income. You have to protect that income. So we can have a conversation around that. When do you want to retire, and how much money do you want coming in at retirement? Requires a conversation, because if we can know that number, then we have software that's developed that works just like a GPS in your car. It can take you from where you are financially right now, how you're earning, tell you what you need to do to get from point A to point B, and then what points you need in between, how much interest you need to earn, how much money you need to put, where you need to put it, and things of that nature. So it's not that complicated when you think in terms of building. But what is complicated is, what are you building? Why are you building it? And like Mr. Clement said, are you willing to continue, as even if you were going to buy a house in this market, are you willing to continue putting that money aside and buy into delayed gratification? We live in an instant microwave society where people think that you can jump from the bottom of Stone Mountain to the top in one fell swoop. That's not going to happen. It's unrealistic. And so the conversation starts with what you want, because if you know that, we can help you get it. Thank you.
Awesome. So, Mr. Clements, I already tried to preface you. I'm talking about that discipline and what that looks like, and why does that seem to be so difficult for so many?
So anything that we want in life, obviously, you've got to have some sweat equity. And when you think about, those goals and those parameters, obviously, there are timelines involved. But to me, the foundational piece is making the commitment and really sticking with that commitment, because we can give you a formula today over a 20-year period with a high degree of success. If you will follow that, you will get the results, whether it's through insurance-based products or other areas. When you think about the insurance industry as an example, that's $1 trillion industry. And anyone who's looking to create wealth in life may want to think about doing something as simple as just getting a license at some point, depending on how you want to live, and the knowledge that comes with that, because that knowledge is also predicated on how you build wealth as well. But that discipline, the discipline is it really doesn't, from my perspective, it really doesn't matter what you do if you have the discipline, whatever you do. You know, life tells you to go get a degree and do these things, but whatever you choose to do, if you have that discipline of saving and living below your means or looking at a debt-free life, you will find ways to allow you to be in position to create wealth, because that discipline is what's going to sustain you over time. You know, if you go through a job situation, or, you know, many people are going through restructures and things of that nature, you're always prepared for something to happen, and your lifestyle doesn't change. But to me, is that mindset to say, I'm willing to look at this for the long haul, right? There are things, you know, that give you shorter returns now, but they're more speculative, they're more risky. But if you just want a simple plan that you're willing to follow with those discipline means, you have a very high probability of success. It starts with the mindset that I'm going to train myself and be disciplined to save. I'm going to not accumulate a lot of debt. I'm going to try and pay for things. If I can't pay for things, then I don't acquire them. Those types of things early allow you to create good habits, and those good habits leads to good returns.
I love that. I love that. Okay, so let's go back to Shaw University in the 90s. That was me. You go out on the yard. There was all these tables lined up from one side to the other. They were all credit card companies. They know we didn't have no job. We was all in school. And everyone, you were just stopping at table, from table to table to table to table. Now, I want you to talk to those college kids right now that's going through that very same thing. Because most people get their first credit card in college. Most people keep that credit card if they can. Talk to that person right there, 18, 19, 20 years old, that's in school, maybe got a part-time job. I worked at Dollar Tree in college, but I was trying to survive too, because ramen noodles, if the calf messed around and closed, David know about it. You in bad shape at Shaw. Listen, but what if we got a little part-time job? What can we start? Should we get that credit card to start building our credit? Because that's what we know. That's what we've heard, that if I want to get a house, I need some credit, or I need to be doing something different. So, Stephanie, talk to me as a 20-year-old college student with a part-time job. What should I be doing to build wealth for myself?
I'm glad you asked. First thing is, we want you to have a part-time business. We want to teach you the power of taking advantage of a pass-through business, which simply means you can get tax credits and offset whatever your part-time job is. At the end of the day, if we can show you how to leverage the time and efforts of others for your own time and money freedom, where you can offer someone the exact same opportunity that you have to open up an outlet, say like a McDonald's or Chick-fil-A or any other company where you can franchise, right? And show you how you can override that income and then have ownership, and you can show someone else how to have the same thing, and then use that money to begin investing early in life so that you have time on your side so that you can take advantage of the ups and downs in any market. Then what we have done for you is shown you early enough how not to need a credit card. We've shown you early enough how to have interest income coming in that will pay you a salary where you don't have to go punch a clock for money, because you've got your money now working 24/7 for you. And we would love an opportunity to have that conversation with you, because again, in many families, if your parents didn't know what to tell you, they're telling you what they know, but that may not be all there is to know. And then, of course, if you don't keep in the forefront of your mind what your goals are, what you're trying to achieve, you can literally give away your future with one wrong choice in your present. So we want to talk to you about how to, again, remain focused on your goals, remain focused on the objectives that you have that will insulate you from the momentary credit card trap, and then show you how you can pay cash for things and then live a debt-free life and enjoy that. And then now we've changed the trajectory from get a job, get in debt of all kinds, to have a business that pays you and then invest in companies that are in your portfolio so that every time you spend, you're still making money. Back to you, DeShannon.
So we're going to start talking about concepts. We're going to shift a little bit. So now we had threw out some concepts earlier. We talked about a little bit about compound interest. Somebody said the rule of 72. We're going to actually define some of those things. So, oh, somebody's got a clock. So listen, I'm going to start with Mr. Clements. I think he first mentioned the rule of 72, that he learned that early from his father. So and he also mentioned Investing for Dummies. That's the yellow books that comes out, and it's very simple English. I'm talking about, I want you to break this down to the lowest common denominator, Mr. Clements. We're talking about concepts that everybody should know. What in the world is the rule of 72?
So the rule of 72, I'm going to try to explain this in simple terms. So when you think about investing, we talk about income and we talk about compound interest. The rule of 72, basically what you do is you take your rate of return, you divide that into 72, and it tells you exactly how many years it takes for your money to double. So as an example, if you get a 10% return on whatever your investment is, that means that your money will double in 7 years. So when you think about it in the concept of investing overall and kind of from a beginning stage, maybe to a more mature stage, what you want to do is you want to look at investment vehicles that you're comfortable with that provide you higher rates of returns. And we talked about many things that can do that, whether it's a stock or a mutual fund or other vehicles. But from my perspective, I try to look at it as I want to get the highest rate of return possible. As I do that, it allows my money to compound and double faster. In some cases, I try to look at it quite honestly and say, I'd like for it to double every 4 to 5 years as a basic if I'm doing my homework correctly.
So really what you're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, is what I want to know is if I put my $10 in, I want to know how quickly it's going to make me $20.
In simple terms.
I got that. Okay, but
Mhm.
hopefully we're going to do more than 10. So David, why is life insurance? You mentioned this a couple times. I think you called it income protection. Now listen, we doing GoFundMes. We got some insurance, but what we doing with that money, we spending it. Why is it important, and what should we be looking for? Because as well as I do, in the Black community, folks are still knocking on doors that do not look like us, with a notebook in hand, collecting. That's what happened to my parents. That's what happened to my grandparents. They knew the insurance man. He had the neighborhood on lock. Everything, he went door to door with his notepad. But we found out later that they've been paying all their whole life and did not have enough to even put them in the ground. So one, I want you to tell me why it's important, and then a quick summary of the two major types of insurance and which one is better for us?
Well, real quickly, life insurance, and Stephanie called it by its proper name, it's income protection. The reason you get insurance is say there's a family, there's with two breadwinners, and there's two incomes coming in. And so what if one of those people leave or they die, actually, let's call it what it is. How do you replace that income? The insurance policy is supposed to replace that income. But now people don't know how to buy insurance. Your insurance policy should be at least 10 times your income. We always say, we'll get X amount of dollars, and people pick numbers out of the air. I want 100,000. I want, because it sounds good, but they haven't planned. Because if say you got a mortgage of $5,000, you got a car payment of $200, you got children you want to go to college, you got to do what is your income, your annual expenditures are. Whatever that number is, you need to be able to cover that and then do it for at least 10 years. So that's how you get a baseline for how much insurance you need to have, because it's going to cost you $15,000 to have a decent service. But if you've got a $250,000 policy coming in, after you do that nice service, you should still have about $200,000+, and you can then invest that money. But with a whole life insurance, the best even if you got $100,000, you're going to get short because you spent so much. Like I said earlier, insurance, there's two types. There's term and whole life. And that man who came by and knocked on that door, whole life was traditionally sold to poor whites and to Black people because it was cheaper, but it was the smallest return. Most insurance people, you would have a term because you can get more for less. So what we try to teach people how to do to buy more and invest, buy term and invest the difference. Because life is really, in the early stage of your life, you're going to need a lot of insurance coverage because you got children, you got death and all that. So if you lost that income, you need to be able to replace that. As you get older in life, if you've been able to invest your money using the principles that Mr. Clemens talked about, or that Stephanie talked about, you almost become insurance independent and you don't need as much to replace an income. You still might want to leave some for your survivors, but there is a way to do that and that's why any financial person will tell you term insurance is the best. You get more for less, and the earlier you get it, the best. You get it when you're young. It costs less. Any insurance. When you get older, you got ailments. And now with COVID, there are people now who don't, if you get COVID or you get cancer, you can't buy insurance for periods of time. So you really have to buy it young. And so that's the thing that we don't teach our people and our kids about getting insurance young and buying lots of it, because that's how you begin to build that wealth. And the thing about the credit card, real quick, the thing about that credit card, we didn't teach you that credit card, me, I'll talk, but I'll let it go. But, the credit card thing is that we don't teach people how to credit cards. That was the big thing.
Now I think that's going to be part 2 on how to keep ourselves out of debt. But Stephanie, let's talk about investing and where or how or what should I be investing in?
Okay. So generally speaking, you spoke of people who come and knock on your door that you don't know if you even like or trust them. So the first thing to do is to have a conversation with someone that like, and trust who's in the industry, because obviously that may be a better resource for you. You want to have an emergency fund. You want to be able to have 6 to 12 months at minimum of your monthly expenses covered, so that in the case of an emergency, that money is there. We want to show you how to do that. Second thing is your short-term investments. That's the second bucket. You should have three. The first is the emergency fund. The second is the short-term, saving for special events, special purchases, life events, vacations, things of that nature. And then the third is your long-term event. That's for your retirement. We want you to be able to invest long-term so that you don't have to dip into that money because it's more expensive pulling from certain of those instruments. So the first thing we want to do is, again, find out what you want, talk about an interview, a suitability, if you will, to find out, like you said earlier, Shannon, I don't know what kind of investor I am. I don't know whether I want to be aggressive or moderate or whatever the cases might be. So a one-on-one conversation about that is the way to determine what is best for you. Everyone is different. Every case is different. And to be able to customize for you your own game plan, that's what you want. And we can make that available to you. And so 3 buckets: immediate, because it's an emergency fund; short term, so that you can plan for the things that you want; and then long term, knowing that all along the way, like Mr. Clements said, you're developing better habits. If you know what the rules are to the game, chances are you'll be able to play the game well and win at the end.
I love that. That's like one of my favorite books. It starts out saying, life is not a battle, it's a game. And so, but you don't know how to play the game if you don't know the rules. And so what we were just trying to give you guys is some basic rules to building wealth in your, because you are your community. And so we talked to Stephanie Whitaker, and we talked to David Linton, and we talked to Pierre Clements. And I'm going to put their information on the screen one more time because y'all need to write this down. Go to their website. Talk to them. They are making themselves available. You cannot say, I did not know. Nobody told me. They kept the information to themselves. These people are sharing with you how you can build wealth. Now, I know, we think we smart and we think we know what we're doing, but why not talk to somebody who do this for a living? You will not go to Ray and Earl if you got an ailment. Let me tell you what my grandma taught us. You can't ask a poor man how to get rich. You got to talk to the people who do this for a living. You're not going to anybody for anything. We want to talk to the people who know what they're doing, and that's going to help you to do it well. Because we know one thing: God does all things well. And he's given us the ability to gain wealth. But what you need to know is from Stephanie, from David, from Pierre, how to. Even the disciples who walked with Jesus had to learn how to pray. So even though you're making money, you have to learn what to do with it. This has been Community Social Justice, talking about building wealth in the Black community. And I'm going to circle back around again for them to give their information out so that you can get in touch with them. You want to know how to do it? That's what we got these people on here for. No more excuses about we held it close to our chest. Didn't nobody tell us? We got more excuses than somebody going to jail. But we are bringing you resources that you can count on. So I'm going to start with Stephanie. Let her do 1 minute of what she does and where you can contact her. We're going to go to Mr. Linton, tell you what he does, how you can contact him. Go to Mr. Pierre, what he does, how you can contact them. And then we're going to wrap up. Share this with someone, because we all need this information. So we're going to start with you, Stephanie.
Thank you so much. What a pleasure again to be on the show today. For those of you listening, thank you for your ear. We're all about connecting people to resources. Again, as I said, Stephanie Whitaker, I'm a bridge connecting people to resources, especially when it comes to understanding a wealth mindset, which is to have time and money freedom at the same time. We provide group discussions, financial education, mentoring programs. We've got professional coaching, leadership development, business building workshops, entrepreneurship classes, networking opportunities. We run the gamut when it comes to all of the things related to financial services. You can reach me at 678-783-6380. And you can go to my website, www.tostartover.com. How many times have you wished you could start over? Let's have the conversation. Thank you.
I love that. David?
Thank you for this opportunity. And to everyone out there, I can be reached at Linton, the number 4 Shore, Gmail. I'm on Instagram at Linton Kid, and you can reach me at 404-861-3929. What we do is we help you with insurance, but we also teach you concepts on how you can build wealth, how to develop that discipline, to understand your wants versus needs, how not to succumb to peer pressure, because that's what gets us in a lot of trouble. Remember, there was an old song called Keeping Up with the Joneses. Well, you become the Joneses in your community. And so that's what we do. We would love to have the opportunity to share with you. We're coaches. We share how to get some of those multiple income streams. We've got some concepts. So we'd like to share those things with you. And thank you for this forum, Mr. Shannon, because we believe in building wealth.
Hello, everyone. Again, I'm Pierre Clements. I appreciate the opportunity to depart some knowledge with you today. I'm kind of a hybrid. When you think about the Kiyosaki model, I am an employee and I'm also an entrepreneur. So from my perspective today, I represent Pierre Clements, CEO of Inside Group International. We are a business development consultancy that works with corporations and also individuals. And I enjoy talking to people about wealth strategies. I'm also an independent insurance broker. I can be reached at Inside Group, INTL @gmail.com, and appreciate the opportunity to depart further knowledge beyond this program today.
Okay, so I told y'all we was not messing around. If we're going to bring people onto Community Social Justice ATL, they were going to be people that you can get information from. Obviously, in 1 hour, they can't tell you every single thing, but because they are willing to continue this conversation, if you contact them, I'm confident that you will get exactly what you need. Again, my name is DeShannon. I've been your host for Community Social Justice ATL. And listen, we come here every other week or so, Friday, 7 p.m. We're talking about things that matter in our community. What are we talking about next? We're talking about bridging the gap. This school thing with COVID is running rampant. Our kids, some of them are getting sick, whole classrooms. We're going to bring in superintendents, teachers, community activists to bridge the gap between what we're seeing, what we're hearing, and the information that's given. We're also going to start talking about mental health again, which is something that's very dear to me. I know more about mental health and missing persons than I care to know. We're going to be talking about still racism and religion. We're going to still talk about politics and voter suppression. Community social justice is not just about one-dimensional. Homelessness is on our agenda. We're talking about things that matter to us, things that's important to us, but we have vetted this information to get it out to you. Again, my name is DeShannon. On behalf of the whole Community Social Justice ATL, we wish you the best. We want you to know that you can be better than you were yesterday, because tomorrow is still coming. So good night, everybody. My guests stay in the studio and have a great weekend.